Hey guys, Darren Sugiyama here, CEO and founder of Lionsmark Capital, the most mathematically prudent premium financing intermediary firm in the life insurance industry. So, today's webinar, we're going to talk about probably one of the most frequently asked questions that I'm personally being asked recently by both life insurance agents and financial advisors all over the country. And that is, how do we feel about this increasing interest rate environment that we're in right now? Going back just about maybe 7 to 8 weeks ago, prime rates, SOFR rates, CMT rates, etc., were significantly less than they are right now. The Feds have talked about continually increasing the interest rates multiple times before the end of this year in 2022. And so one of the questions, again, that I'm being asked is, how is this going to affect premium financing? And even more specifically, does premium financing work in an increasing interest rate environment? Well, as you know, if you have any experience with Lionsmark Capital and any of the data analytics and the proprietary software that we are all about using the math to calculate the real financial truth. So take feelings out of it, take crystal ball speculation out of it, take intuition out of it. Historically speaking, how has the math worked or not worked? And how does that affect premium financing on a move forward basis? So to give you an example of the environment we're in, just a couple months ago, prime was 100 basis points less than it is today. As we sit here in the middle of June 2022, prime is currently 4%. Now, if we go back to, say, the early 80s, in a much higher interest rate environment then than we're in now, prime was 11% in 1982, almost 3 times higher than it is today. The question is, would premium financing have worked if the client started in 1982? So fast forward from 1982, 40 years, that would put an end point at the end of last year, 2021. So we're going to take a look at the symbiotic relationship, historically speaking, between the borrowing rates and the indexed crediting rates. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I did here was I took the last year of S&P performance data, which was the end of 2021, and rolled the clock back 40 years, which would put a start point on January 1st, 1982. So this is the first 12 years of that sequence. So during the early 80s, interest rates were extremely high, relatively speaking, about 3 times higher than they are currently here in the year 2022. One of our lenders uses a prime-based loan rate, and their loan rate calculation is prime minus 1.6%. Well, at the end of 1982, prime was 11%. So 11% minus the spread of 1.6% would equal a borrowing rate in 1982 of 9.4%. Now, imagine if premium financing borrowing rates were 9.4% today. That, quite frankly, I think would freak most people out. That seems incredibly high relative to today. As of the beginning of June 2022, prime is currently 4%. So 4% minus the spread of 1.6% would be a total borrowing rate of 2.40%. Now, much less than 9.40%. But I was also curious as to what historical S&P returns were like during the same period of time, 1982 through 1993. So here we have the same backtested historical period, 1982 through 1993. In column 12 there, we have the historical S&P returns during that period. And assuming this particular carrier's floor and cap, and again, we're reducing the 10.5% cap down to 10%, just to be conservative. And then we're also factoring in the multiplier factor. So column 14, the orange column, represents the effective index credits in each one of those years based on that particular floor, cap, and multiplier design. So the real question is, how do these historical returns match up with the historical borrowing rates? Because if all you're looking at is interest rates, you're really oversimplifying the real issue here. The real issue is not what the interest rates are solely. The real issue is, what is the ongoing symbiotic relationship between the historical borrowing interest rates and the historical index credits? So if we look at the symbiotic relationship over time, historically speaking, the reality is, in this particular depiction here, that starts with a very high interest rate environment, there were only 2 negative S&P returns during this 12-year period, which would have meant there would only be 2 0% index credit years during this 12-year period. And again, history tells us that the correlation between interest rates and S&P performance are very, very closely related. Now, the reason I chose this particular 12-year period is kind of twofold. One, it is the first 12 years of the most recent 40-year sequence. Again, 2021, rolling back 40 years. And then the second reason I use this 12-year window is this is the period wherein the client is paying the interest out of pocket in the premium financed offering. So if we look at the total 40-year period here, I also wanted to be overly conservative and take the multiplier benefit out of the equation completely and just look at the comparison between the index credit and the borrowing rate using a 0% floor and a 10% cap. The borrowing rates here, we're using 40-year historicals using a prime-based loan, again, prime minus 1.6. And in the green cells there, we see years wherein there was a positive arbitrage between the index credit and the borrowing rate. And in the red cells there, we see years wherein there was a negative arbitrage. But if you look at the top, in the first 5 years where the borrowing rate was north of 9%, in 3 of those 5 first years, there was still a positive arbitrage based on S&P performance. So even though we started off with a sequence during a very high interest rate environment, over this 40-year period, there was actually a 2.1% average positive arbitrage between the historical index credits and the historical borrowing rates. And it doesn't stop there, because the other question is, how does this affect the total financial outcome over time? Now, this is assuming a 10% cap. What if caps drop even lower than 10%? Okay, well, I'm going to model a 7% cap. And so using the same backtested period with a 0% floor and a 7% cap, we still eke out a 14 basis point average positive arbitrage. But the reality is, historically speaking, caps have been higher during high interest rate environments, right? And this model assumes a static 7% cap even during times where those interest rates are higher. Now, to give you an example, let's roll the clock back 7, 8, 9 years ago. 7, 8, 9 years ago, borrowing rates were about 40 to 50% higher than they are today. However, what were caps 7, 8, 9 years ago? If the average cap today is hovering between 8 to 10%, 7, 8, 9 years ago, average caps were hovering right around 14%. So historically speaking, not only has S&P performance been greater during higher interest rate environments, IUL caps have also historically been higher. Yet in this depiction here, I'm assuming a static 7% cap even during times where the historical borrowing rate would have been 9.4%. And then on top of that, one of the most important things to understand when it comes to premium financing is that negative percentage arbitrage does not necessarily mean a negative dollar arbitrage. What I mean by that is, let's say, for example, the borrowing rate was a hypothetical 5%. And let's say the index credit was also the same hypothetical 5%. Well, you would say, oh, well, we broke even in that year. Well, not necessarily, because as time goes on, the 5% borrowing rate is charged to the cumulative loan balance. Now, assuming you're not accruing interest, that cumulative loan balance, you're paying simple interest on that cumulative loan balance. However, if you're crediting 5% in the policy, you're crediting 5% on the accumulated value of the policy, which is a compounding number each year. So if you're being charged 5% on a lower dollar value, which would be the cumulative loan balance, but you're crediting the same 5% on a higher dollar value of accumulated value in the policy, though you might be breaking even in terms of a 5% interest rate and a 5% crediting rate percentage-wise, from a dollar perspective, a 5% index credit on a higher accumulated value would credit a higher dollar value to the policy value than the dollar value of interest that you're paying on the premium financed loan. Okay, and if you're wondering if you can finance whole life, the answer is certainly yes, but a lot of folks will say, well, whole life dividend credits right now might not be enough to get a positive arbitrage when it comes to premium financing. Well, what I did was I looked at the same look back period, 1982 through 2021. And in that red box right there, those are the historical dividend credits from 4 different whole life companies: Guardian, Mass Mutual, Northwestern Mutual, and Penn Mutual. Just next to those historical dividend credits in the green column there, those are the lowest performing dividends of each of those 4 carriers in each one of those back-tested 40 years. Now, if we compare the lowest performing dividend of those 4 carriers to the historical borrowing rates, assuming prime minus 1.6, we see that in that 40-year period, there were only 4 years that experienced a negative arbitrage. The lowest performing dividend credit out of each of those 4 carriers was greater than the historical borrowing rate in 36 of the 40 years. If we look at the graph on the right-hand side of the screen there, again, the blue line is the historical prime-based loan rates, and the green line is the lowest performing dividend of those 4 carriers in each one of those years. Historically speaking, the symbiotic relationship between the borrowing rate and the whole life dividend credits actually eked out a 2.14% average positive arbitrage. So when it comes to premium financing, one of the most valuable elements that LionSmart Capital brings to the table is the ability to show you and your client historical data that tells a more accurate story of how premium financing actually works, how all the moving parts work, and how by stress testing the design through our proxy and our software, we can analyze this range of potential outcomes, which allows us, in my opinion, to present a much deeper understanding of how the different elements of premium financing actually work in reality. So lastly, I want to show you how you can use our website as a great resource and a great tool to improve the efficiency of how you can communicate some of these concepts to your clients. So we have a library of case studies that you can access. If you go up to the top here of our website, lionsmartcapital.com, click on case studies, and this will jump you to a page where you can either choose a retirement income design or death benefit design. Let's say you choose death benefit design, click on that. And the 3 different designs that are designed for death benefit will pop up here: first dollar financing, partial equity interest accrual, and 100% cost recovery, net zero expense. You can click on the design you want. Let's say you click on first dollar financing, and our library will pop up here. We have 4 different case studies, age 50, 55, 60, and 65. If you click on one of the PDF icons down here, the full proposal will pop up, and you can share this with the client. You can show them all the cool graphs, the ledger, etc. This also includes all the cool backtesting designs that we have. And then if you want to send them the link to this video, you can click on video here, and a 26-minute video will pop up here. And this is actually me stepping through this entire case. You can click on the URL up here, copy and paste that into an email, and actually send this to a client so they can watch me explain how premium financing works with this particular design, with this particular case study. And that's a great way to start the conversation. In fact, if you can have your client watch the video before they get on the phone with me, that serves for a much better first meeting with your client. So when you have an actual live case that you want to discuss, you go up to the toolbar here at the very top, click on illustration request. You can select either individual policy or survivorship. Let's say you select individual. You can select either retirement income design or death benefit design. And then we have an intake form here. We can put in your client information, as well as the type of design that you're requesting. Do you want them to pay interest only out of pocket? Do you want them to pay a fixed amount for 10 years? And then all of those client vitals. You can even attach and upload any in-force illustrations that you want to include, whether that be from an incumbent advisor you're competing against, or if you have an in-force policy that you're thinking about 1035ing the value into the new finance policy, you can upload that here as well. So we make it real simple and user-friendly for you to request an illustration. And then when it comes time to submit an application, we make this very easy for you as well. If you click on carrier application at the very top, You can then download this Excel file here. We call this a universal application. It essentially includes all of the questions that every carrier is going to ask on the carrier illustration. You can click on this, download it. If you open it up here, you can see what we are asking for here. You just fill in all the yellow cells. You can take this right over the phone with your client. Once you're done filling in all the information, you would save that, and then you can upload it here, and this will shoot it straight to my office. My office team will take that data, populate the carrier application for you, as well as fill out all the supplemental carrier forms that we need for premium financing, as well as populate the initial lender underwriting forms. And then we can circulate this either through snail mail, first to you and then to your client, or if it's with a carrier that allows DocuSign, we will use DocuSign and everyone can sign electronically. So we take a lot of that administrative burden off of your hands, making your user experience as the advisor very, very easy and efficient. If you click on the video link at the very top here, we have several different webinars that we've done in the past. And then FAQs, if you click on this at the very top, this will jump you to a page where we answer all of the most frequently asked questions. We have 3 different sections here. General questions, we have questions, a section here for borrowing rates, and then we have a section here for collateral requirements. So again, we have designed our website for it to be very interactive and really to be used as a destination resource for you to get as many questions answered for you as fast as possible and as efficient as possible. So if you think you're ready to have a discussion with us, you can go ahead and click on Contact Us up here on our website. You can fill in your information here. You can tell us who referred you, and we can set up a Zoom call. Typically, that initial Zoom call would be with me personally. So as we wrap up here, if you do have any questions that we did not address in this webinar, I highly encourage you to go to our website. Go ahead and go to lionsmarkcapital.com. And at the very top of the home screen here, go ahead and click on FAQs in the top toolbar there. That will jump you to a list of the most frequently asked questions that we get asked regarding premium financing. There's actually 3 different categories of FAQs. We have general questions here. We have questions about borrowing rates here. And then we have questions about collateral requirements here. So questions regarding minimum client requirements in terms of net worth, income, size of policy, how old is too old for premium financing, what risks are associated with premium financing, how does this affect the client credit score, and each of these types of questions, you can click on the question and a drop down will articulate answers to each one of those questions. We go over to the borrowing rates section here. How are borrowing rates determined? Are there additional premium financing loan fees? Are there multi-year fixed rate options? How long are the loan terms? And if we click on collateral requirements here, we can talk about the type of collateral that most lenders will accept, whether or not you can use real estate equity as collateral, and whether or not the client is required to move collateral in the form of marketable securities over to the lender, or if they can just keep it with their AUM advisor that it's with right now and just post it as collateral. So again, our website is really set up to be used as a destination and as a great resource, making it possible for you to get your questions answered more quickly and more efficiently. So again, I'm Darren Sugiyama. So glad you could join us on today's webinar, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great day.